Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering panic as corrupt CFPB agency funding has been removed and their office is closed. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Not a lot of people know about CFPB. CFPB was created by Elizabeth Warren, the Democrat senator. Somehow they essentially let her create this entire agency. It's a socialist nonsense organization. It has done a couple of good things, but it's now completely corrupt and exerting way too much influence on the US economy. And all of that is about to end. From Business Insider, the CFPB tells its workers not to perform any work tasks this week while it shuts down its DC headquarters. Now, of course, there are lawsuits trying to stop this activity. From NBC News, union sues Russell Vought over DOGE access to CFPB and attempts to shutter bureau. One lawsuit urged a judge to block the Department of Government Efficiency from accessing employee information, while the other asked the judge to block Vought's directives. So just have a judge completely take over the entire process of running this agency, essentially. There have been a lot of problems with CFPB. Here's just a couple of them. From Paul Sperry, breaking: White House has sent an email ordering all CFPB examiners, this is before they were shut down, lawyers and staff to stop enforcing disparate impact rules, conducting probes, or defending the rules in court, which means auto and home lenders will no longer be forced to give loans or lower rates to uncreditworthy buyers. So if you're of a certain skin color or you love diversity or whatever the situation happens to be, you'll get the same kind of rates on loans and opportunities for cars and houses for people that have earned whatever their credit rating is regardless of their skin color. That's just one of the things CFPB has been pushing to do. CFPB has also been trying to censor Facebook. Zuckerberg said CFPB was looking into us even though we're not a bank. He speculated that the CFPB's inquiries were part of a Biden administration attempt to jawbone Meta into censoring content on its platforms. Andreessen, that's Mark Andreessen, in an earlier episode on Joe Rogan, accused the CFPB of terrorizing anybody who tries to do anything in financial services if a person is from a politically disfavored industry or expresses a viewpoint with which progressive politicians disagree. Mark Andreessen is a big money guy. He's into Silicon Valley. And what he's pointing out is some of these aggressive moves against crypto, as well as what they call fintech, which is Silicon Valley companies essentially getting into the banking business, even though they're not really banks. Those are complicated issues, but what you don't want to have is some ideological organization trying to make up the rules and trying to regulate, without proper congressional oversight, new complicated industries. Particularly because what they do is they find these companies, they control these companies, they push their ideological agenda on these companies, and then they take a lot of the money they receive in fines and they fund progressive left woke organizations. Believe it or not, they represent the government, but they take the money from fines and give it to their Democrat woke political organizations. And it's much worse than you think. From the Washington Post, CFPB looks to place Google under federal supervision, setting up clash. The agency aims to conduct more rigorous direct oversight of the tech firm, a major move that Google has resisted in the final months of the Biden administration. These people want control over Google, the same way they were seeking control over Meta and Facebook. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has taken steps to place Google under formal federal supervision, an extraordinary move that could subject the technology giant to the regular inspections and other rigorous monitoring that the government imposes on major banks. The exact scope of the CFPB's concerns is not clear, and its order does not appear to be final. Because, of course, it's putting out its own directives and orders because it's essentially a non-regulated socialist communist regulatory government unto itself. The CFPB already conducts these inspections at large banks and credit unions, which have been subject to supervision by other state and federal regulators for many years. But the former head of CFPB has expressed recent alarm that the government does not always apply the same oversight to technology companies, even at a time when the financial tools they provide are similar to bank accounts and payment systems long under close watch. And if this guy had a legitimate concern, he should bring that concern to Congress and ask to speak in front of Congress about it so that Congress could act. Not take his own organization and send an order out to Google and try to pressure them into committing to or being supervised any of their new crazy regulations that could generate, no doubt, millions and millions of dollars in fees that they could then use to make themselves more powerful and give to their favorite progressive electioneering organizations. From Business Insider, the CFPB tells its workers not to perform any work tasks because they don't like the work that they're doing. The CFPB's new acting director, Russell Vought, told workers on Monday to not perform any work tasks. This was previously after he said work from home. Now it's like, well, while you're home, just enjoy yourself while we completely decimate and pull apart what's left of this horrible agency. It comes after a Sunday email telling employees not to come into the office. The federal consumer watchdog is the next on President Donald Trump's cost-cutting list. Russ Vought told employees on Monday that they should not and they are ordered to not perform any work tasks this week. On Sunday, employees at the CFPB received a 2-sentence email from Adam Martinez, the agency's chief operating officer, telling DC employees to work remotely. Quote, the DC headquarters building will be closed this week, February 10th through February 14th. Employees and contractors are to work remotely unless instructed otherwise from our acting director or his designee, according to the email. It's unclear when, if at all, the DC headquarters will reopen. The White House didn't immediately respond to a request for any comments because they've got a plan here. They're going to say, look, we're shutting down the office for a week. How could you stop them from closing the office for a week? No matter who the corrupt judge is, you kind of can't. And who knows what's going to happen to that office this week while it's closed. I'm sure all the computers are being taken out. They have a crew in there wiping it out. It should be interesting. Trump fired Rohit Chopra, the CFPB director under former President Joe Biden, on February 1st. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent took on the role of acting director of the agency up until the director of Office and Management and Budget, Vought, took over the role on Saturday night. The CFPB was established in 2011 to protect consumers from financial crises. It's taken enforcement and oversight actions on big banks and lenders, returning billions of dollars to consumers, but mostly pocketing the money for their own progressive causes. In an email on Saturday, Vought ordered employees to stop nearly all of the agency's work, including its supervisory activities that ensure companies are complying with the law. This disparate impact garbage is all diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they did a lot more pushing companies on diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, things that are completely unrelated to consumer fraud. A CFPB employee told Business Insider that the order caused nearly all of the agency's ongoing work to stop. Vought also wrote in a post on Twitter on Saturday that the CFPB will not be taking its next draw of unappropriated funding because it's not reasonably necessary to carry out its duties. The CFPB receives its funding from the Federal Reserve directly rather than through Congress's annual appropriations process, which has been criticized by many GOP lawmakers who've said Congress should oversee the agency's funding, like literally every other agency. Quote, this spigot, long contributing to CFPB's unaccountability, is now being turned off, according to Vought. Adam Russ, the director of financial services at the nonprofit Consumer Federation of America, previously told Business Insider that shutting down the CFPB would have real ramifications for people's pocketbooks. The agency had rules to cap overdraft fees and remove medical debt from credit reports, which are now suspended. Elon Musk, leader of Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, has targeted a range of agencies over the past 2 weeks. A federal judge temporarily blocked Trump's administration from placing more than 2,000 USAID workers on paid leave as the administration took steps to shut down the agency. CFPB RIP, Musk wrote on Twitter last week. The Democrats and the establishment and the people that are really robbing these federal agencies blind and abusing their powers for their own personal and ideological gains have 2 moves they can make. One, they can use lawsuits. All they need is a couple of corrupt judges, and the judges can overextend themselves and try to block the rightful power of the executive branch to change these agencies. The executive branch is limited in getting rid of certain agencies, but not in 95% of the moves that they're making. And notably, Congress hasn't objected to any of this. But Democrats sure don't like it. In fact, Democrats now haven't quite figured things out yet. They're thinking that if they threaten the government with shutting down the government, that'll prevent the government from shutting down the government. From the Washington Post, Democrats hint at government shutdown to stop Trump's axing at federal agencies. Two Democratic senators from New Jersey, Cory Booker and Andy Kim, said Democrats should not vote for a spending package that would affirm President Trump's agenda in gutting federal agencies. Yeah, but there's one problem with that. And they figured that out at the Boston Globe. Trump may want a government shutdown to last months or years. Yeah, he's trying to shrink the government very aggressively. So if the government was to shut down, they would still make all the essential payments, but it would give Trump even more freedom to keep these offices closed and wipe them out completely. Here's some of what the CFPB has been doing that is completely off their mission and has gotten totally out of control. The CFPB must be dismantled, the hidden hand of progressive funding. The CFPB has been promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion and environmental, social, and governance initiatives. Rather than just focusing on preventing fraud or predatory lending, which can exist, the CFPB has expanded its scope to enforce ideological compliance among financial institutions. Banks and lenders now face heightened scrutiny not merely for their treatment of consumers, but for their adherence to progressive social policies. The Bureau has threatened enforcement actions against institutions that fail to meet its evolving DEI expectations, effectively coercing them into funding left-wing initiatives under the guise of fair lending practices. This regulatory leverage allows the CFPB to exert influence over private financial decisions in ways that have little to do with consumer protection and everything to do with advancing a broader political agenda. Allegations also persist that the CFPB has funneled vast sums to activist organizations rather than returning penalty revenues to the U.S. Treasury. They don't even give the money to the Treasury. Under the guise of consumer relief, the Bureau has reportedly directed settlement funds to groups that engage in voter registration drives, legal activism, and progressive advocacy, activities while couched in neutral language overwhelmingly benefit Democrat electoral efforts. For example, records indicate the CFPB allocated $10 million to the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, an organization that has been involved in financial activism and policy lobbying. Similarly, $5 million was directed to Unidos US, formerly known as the National Council of La Raza, a group actively engaged in voter outreach and immigration policy efforts. Another $3 million reportedly flowed to the Center for Responsible Lending, a nonprofit that has pushed progressive financial policies that align with the Democratic legislative goals. The CFPB routinely has refused FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, where they're supposed to give you information on how they're operating and what they're doing, effectively shielding its activities from public oversight. And that's one of the reasons why they got to bring this lawsuit to try to interfere with the federal government. An employee union filed 2 lawsuits against the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's acting director, Russell Vought. One lawsuit urged a judge to block the Department of Government Efficiency from accessing employee information, while the other asked the judge to block Vought's directives. Vought instructed employees in an email on Saturday to cease all supervision and examination activity, cease all stakeholder engagement, and pause all pending investigations, among other orders. The other lawsuit says 3 DOGE-affiliated staffers were onboarded into the Bureau's internal communication system, which NBC News also reported. The union said Vought instructed CFPB employees to give the DOGE team access to all non-classified CFPB systems. The union argued that the DOGE-affiliated staffers should not be allowed to access CFPB systems, including employee information. Quote, these employees face irreparable harm to their privacy interests if their employee information is improperly accessed and or disseminated by individuals associated with DOGE, according to their lawsuit. Once an employee's personal information is improperly disclosed, the harm to the employee cannot be undone. The CFPB media team did not immediately respond to a request for comment Sunday night. One of Vought's directives to staffers Saturday included instructions to, quote, not issue public communications of any type. So that probably explains it. This organization has become a complete terror. It should not be acting without congressional oversight. It should not be trying to force companies to follow their diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. It certainly should not be taking money it receives on behalf of pursuing federal government interests and federal law and taking that money and then giving it to its activist friends without any oversight. while refusing FOIA requests so no one can tell what's actually going on inside of the agency. No wonder they're trying to sue to try to hide the information. I don't know how long it's going to go on with these corrupt judges. Of course, Trump and his team are very well aware there are corrupt judges. There are judges that will do anything just to keep their ideology going. But the Trump team is also very smart. And they're not going to be tricked into just avoiding or ignoring rulings from court orders. They will deal with these court orders. They will work around the court orders. They will follow the law. And when the right case comes through, they'll appeal that just so they can have their authority to actually run the executive branch and get rid of all the corruption and the fraud confirmed by the Supreme Court. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you. And if you want to support this channel and help me make even more videos, subscribe to the channel and become a paid member today.